So one of the most common DIY projects over the last few years is upgrading your thermostat to a smart thermostat, my favorite being a Nest thermostat. This should be a very quick install, running you about 30 minutes and you're back up and running, but there are a few things that can get in your way and extend out your project quite a bit and leave you Googling for answers. So today we're going to touch on the thermostat wires themselves. You might have an old system with an old wiring setup like I do, which is not going to be directly compatible to the Nest. So let me show you what I'm working with back here and how I'm going to correct that to get the 5 wires I need going back to my HVAC to make sure everything works correctly. So let's take a closer look. So if we pop off this cover to see what we're working with, this is kind of the moment of truth to see, is this going to be an easy project or a more in-depth project for you? So for me, if we focus in, one, we can see we have really old thermostat wires. So this is just from a very old setup, and we only have red, blue, and white. So if you looked at a diagram for a modern HVAC system, just a common modern system, you would think this is 24 volts. White is usually indicating when your heat is turned on, and blue would be a common. So this would not make sense as a setup. What we would want to see is something like this, where we have red, 24 volts, then white, which is going to be connected or switched to 24 volts when heat is on, yellow, which is going to be switched or connected to 24 volts when cooling system is on, green, which is switched to 24 volts when the fan or the blower fan is running, and then blue is a common, which is usually needed for most smart thermostats to ensure they have a consistent source of power. So the question is, maybe you have 3 wires like this or 4 wires, but you want to connect up your new Nest or your new smart thermostat. So what do? First, I recommend going to the source of truth, and the source of truth is actually the control board on your furnace. So these wires could be spliced in, connected different ways, and connected differently down at your control board. So that's where I like to start to understand what I'm working with. So since I only have 3 wires, I'm most likely going to just run a new 18 gauge 5 wire strand up to my thermostat, but let me show you what to check and make the appropriate plan of attack. So I'm tracking my thermostat wire, so it loops up under the support beam. All right, so then it goes up through the wall, and then that's going to my thermostat. So I'm going to track that back through to the furnace itself, and that is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for any splices. So then I know the colors going to my thermostat, which is on the right-hand side, and then the colors on the more modern thermostat wire with the 2 kind of wrapped back there, that's going to go to the control board. So all I'm confirming is that blue is to blue, white is to white, and red is to red. So those colors will continue on. Now let me show you how to check out your control board. I'll remove the lower access panel, and then you should see the control board right on the outside of the blower fan motor and housing. Then I'll track that thermostat wire coming in, and I'll see which wires go to the screw terminals, seeing that R is going to the red wire, and then white wire is connected to the W terminal. And then here's where confusion can come in. The blue wire goes to Y terminal, which controls cooling. And just to note, the other 2 wire control wire coming in, that goes to your outside condenser, which we won't focus on in this video. Now with the power off, I'm going to undo these screw terminals. What do I want to see by pulling on this end of the thermostat wire if I have a lot of play? Because I know I have slack down in the basement. All right, so I should be good, because I want to use this to fish down new 18 gauge 5 wire thermostat wire all the way down the basement, getting rid of the splice and getting 5 wires all the way up here to the thermostat. Just like if I was fishing Romex through a wall, what I'm going to use is 2 wires from the old wire and 2 wires from the new wire, and I'm going to splice those together, doubling back and doing a little twist here prior to adding electrical tape. So once I have them twisted and secured, then I'm going to use some good electrical tape. I use 3M Super 33. And I'll go ahead and wrap that completely once, and I'll double back and wrap it twice, looking to reduce any catches or any sharp points in that wire. Then this is kind of a 2-person job. It is nice to have somebody up above to kind of help push that through initially. And then once you get it going, you can just pull that through down, in my case, into the basement. Then I'm going to pull out a lot of extra new thermostat wire, and I am going to run it on top of that support beam right above the yellow Romex. And then I'm going to fish that down through the same hole as the control wires for that outside condenser, and then make sure I have plenty of extra wire. Using these coax clips, that's how I'm going to secure the routing. Then I will remove the 3 wires from the old thermostat wire, getting those out, and then bringing in the new 5-wire thermostat wire and stripping each of the 5 individual strands about a 1/2 of an inch. But in my case, I actually stripped a little bit too much. You could do a shorter exposed copper and you'd be fine. Then we'll just go across. We'll do the blue to C, which is your common, green wire to G, which it controls your fan. We'll do the R, or red wire to R, which is 24 volts, white wire to the W terminal, which controls heat, and then the yellow wire to the Y terminal, which controls your AC. Now back up at the thermostat, we're going to do something very similar, and on both ends of this wire, I like to leave a little service length of wire. So a little extra length I can push back in the wall or store in the furnace. So kind of helping out that future guy or gal who's doing any service to have a little extra wire to help with troubleshooting and fixing any issues. So I'm just going to connect up the blue, connect up the green, yellow, white, and red, just mimicking exactly what we had at the furnace. So now I'm back up and running, and I have the 18 gauge 5-wire thermostat wire going from this thermostat all the way down to my furnace in one continuous run, which is much better than the scabbed together pieces I had before and only 3 wires coming up to my thermostat. What that additionally gives me, I now can run my furnace fan, my blower fan, if I want to, without the air conditioning or heating. And then it also gives me that C wire, which some of the smart thermostats need to have continuous power. A few things to note. If you jump into this project, you take your old thermostat on and you're having issues, one way to get emergency heat, which you might need if you're doing this in the winter, is just to use a Wago 221 lever nut, and then you can pass the R wire in, the white wire hits your levers, and what that brings is 24 volts to the white, and that's going to turn your furnace on. That's going to continuously run your furnace until you take the white wire out, but at least it gives you a way to get heat if you don't have a functioning thermostat. Now the big other stumbling block that I've seen people encounter when they're swapping out to a smart thermostat like this Nest is if you get the cheaper model, this is about $129, well the base of this is tiny, right? So if I mount this to where the old thermostat goes, now I have a bunch of wall surface that might be damaged, might have a different paint, might have faded paint, and it just looks terrible. So definitely something to consider. Right now I need about 5.5 inches of width by 4.5 inches of height to cover my old thermostat. So if I don't know my wall's paint color, I don't want to do any drywall repair, and I don't want to paint this whole wall trying to match it, the base of your new thermostat is very important to consider. And check out this video right here. I'll give you a little hack which actually uses a light switch faceplate to give you a base for just about $1 or $2. So thanks for sticking around, and we'll catch you on the next video. Take care.